Yo, what's up, guys? We're here with Dave. You want our locals? First place with the big Galbu Bond,
Oh,
Ancient Garuru.
good one. Yeah, pretty good. Like my two main matchups that I had in the last two rounds were like there's only three. What was it two rounds or three? I can't remember. But it was the last two matches were against Magna X, the blue base, not the vaccine base, and the last match was against Andrew's Imperial Jamon, which I'm pretty sure he just got like top eight at regionals.
Yeah,
Was
I
it
put it
regional?
in wrong. He got top four.
Top four, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
he got
right.
fourth. That's crazy.
And funnily enough, the Magna player was Ben, who came fifth, but he wasn't playing that Magna list.
True, we made him
Yeah,
switch to Numamon for the event,
new
but
one. Yeah,
yeah,
we all bullied him into playing new,
we
mate.
did, we did.
Uh, anyway, so yeah, I think the deck's pretty good. Like it's a little bit piece reliant. This deck I'm talking about,
Oh
the
yeah,
Gabu Ancient deck. Um, obviously, this is kind of like a bit of a rough draft. Like I've tested it a little bit and made a couple of changes along the way, but it's still a very much a work in progress. I do think it's good, but I'll probably tinker with a few things.
yeah, for
But
sure.
what I'll go through first are the cards that are definitely not going anywhere. So we'll just do the eggs quickly. You want to run 5 eggs because you're going to pump through your eggs. A
Oh
lot of
yeah.
what this deck does and the combo cycle, Loz knows this as well because I've tested this deck against him. Is
Oh yeah.
if you could have like 8 eggs, you probably have 8 eggs. Like if you could, but yeah, a lot of it is trying to abuse Louis and the Matashita and promote as many times on the same turn.
Mhm.
And also use your analog youth to keep turn after the ancient guru gets deleted.
Yeah,
So
it's
in
insane.
saying that, Matashita, this one here, analog youth, the one next to it, and then Louis. These three tamers are absolutely critical, and you can't run them any lower than 4.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
yeah. So obviously, Matt's been in Bond decks for a while, but like just in case you haven't seen a Bond deck, just because it's a pretty old card.
Mm.
Matashita is when you promote a Gabumon or a Garurumon, but it's pretty much always going to be a Gabumon in this deck, which includes Gabu X as well, which we'll talk about
Yep,
in a little bit.
Gabu in name.
You gain 1 memory and draw 1 card. Now, the thing about this is it's not once per turn. So if
Yep.
you can promote multiple times in a turn, it'll happen again.
Yeah, it's from a
Um,
time when multiple promotions didn't happen, so they just
yeah,
didn't think of
just
it, or
didn't think of it. Yeah, I think we talked about this once. I think the only real way to do it back then was to play Mimi, but
yeah,
then
have
you'd
a
also
green
have to have
five.
it. But you'd have to have a green level 5. It would just be too awkward. But yeah, that was pretty much the only interaction. So yeah, Matashita, promote game memory, draw cards, helps you do your combo loop.
Yep.
Analog Youth is mainly there, like because Ancient Guru, which we'll talk about later, deletes itself at the end of your turn. So once it gets deleted, you want to try and pass only at 1 to 2 memory, depending on how many analogs you have.
Hmm.
If you only have one, you pretty much want to just go to 1, and then you tap your analog youth, keep your turn, hatch another egg, slap another Gabumon down, then you play Louis, and then hopefully by that stage you have a few Matashitas in play as well.
Yep.
And we'll talk about how you get your Matashitas in play. But yeah, Matashita is super important. It's also important for another card we'll talk about later, Lament of Friendship.
Oh
But
yeah.
I would say it's the most important card in this deck. The games you don't see it, you just flat out lose. Like
Yep.
if you do not see this card, the deck doesn't
Yeah,
function.
you need to see Matt.
Yeah. So we'll go into the Digimons here, mainly the Gabumons first. So
Yeah.
I've got 4 of BT15 Gabumon. He's just a straight up draw engine, pretty much. If you've got Matashita in play, not only do you promote and draw, but then at the start of your main phase you draw again, and then his inheritable is just draw 1 card. So that's mainly what got him there
And
for.
says draw.
Yep, yeah, just drawing cards. We got Chonky Gabumon. I'm running him at 4, mainly because I'm running Bond at 3 still. If I go down to 2 bonds, I might drop him down to 3.
Yep.
But because I'm running 3 bonds for at least for the moment, I've got him at 4. But if you're not crazy about the Bond package, or you want to go a bit lighter on the Bond package, you don't need to run this card at 4.
Yeah,
it's kind
fair.
of like, just depends on what your bond ratios are.
So the main purpose of this Gabumon is when attacking, if you're Gabumon, you can restand, right?
Restand mainly, yeah. Um, Actually, I didn't even realize when you have a tamer with Matachita and its name game one memory
Only when you play it though, so it's a bit.
when you play it. But
It's all right.
it never really came up, but in a weird roundabout way, if your ancient Garurumon dies, because when the ancient, I only just realized this,
Oh
if ancient
yeah,
Garurumon dies, it plays a tamer, and if you play Matachita, you'll gain a memory.
yeah, that could come up. But
It,
as you've
it'd be
said,
it'd be pretty rare, but it
yeah,
could happen.
it's
Yeah.
better to have that line of text on there though than to have nothing, right? So
Nothing,
we'll
yeah,
take
sure.
it.
Very rarely does it come up, yeah.
It is an all
Um,
turns effect. Might point that out. If a mat comes out of security and this is out, you gain a memory. That's
Yeah, true. I
interesting.
didn't realize it was all turns. Yeah, normally this gets promoted and either turns into Bond and dies, or like swings in, or
Yeah, that's
just
true.
draw from Wanya. Um, Gabu X. So Gabu X is just more draw. Depending on what pieces, because you'll start to realize when you start playing this deck, is you kind of need all the pieces.
Yeah,
So I found if I was missing Tamers or Lobomons, I'd normally just throw this on in the back and just get the draw.
yeah,
If I'm missing Ancient, this can search Ancient because it will
yeah.
search for a Garurumon. So
Gurumon in
just
name.
yeah. It's not the biggest deal if you do it in the back because Matachita will still gain you the memory and draw you a card.
That's
Uh,
right. Because
Even if
Matt,
it's just
there's once in name as well.
in name, yeah.
Garu in name.
The only thing you won't be able to do with this, and just be wary of, especially if you're building my build, you can't put Bond on top of this.
That's right. Because Bond says.
I think
Oh
it's
no,
Gabu.
the mat. It must be the mat. The mat says it has to
Yeah.
be Gabumon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just be aware of that. But this is mainly here just to find Ancient because he can be a little bit annoying to find sometimes.
Yeah.
And if you're like, if you already have a couple of Ancients or Ancient in hand, just slap it on in the back as long as you're not teeing up a Bond play. That's my advice.
That's pretty good.
Then we move on to the last Gabumon. EX1. So this one, when attacking inheritable, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add a Tamer or a Digimon card.
Any Tamer. I thought this was Matt. This adds
No,
any Tamer. That's
any
so
Tamer.
good.
It's not even blue. Like just
Wow.
any Tamer. Yeah, that's why you play it, man. Like
My God, I just thought this was just Matt, but no, this is any Tamer.
any Tamer. Yeah, well, this was what this got released in EX1.
Yep.
Funnily enough, so did Analog Youth. So I don't know, maybe if they wanted the synergy there, because I'm pretty sure Analog Youth was one of. I don't think it was the first white tamer, but it was one of the first white tamers. I think like Takumi and Nakia had come out before this.
Oh
set.
yeah, I think you're right.
But Analog Youth was probably the most widely used white tamer first white tamer to come out. So I don't know if they designed it that way, just so you could get it off this. But anyway, yeah, that's what it's mainly here for, is finding your tamers, because and also it's pretty handy with the Gabu X as well.
Yeah.
You put the Gabu X on top of this. If you're missing tamers, that's your best way to do it.
That's
You
pretty good.
can do it with a Lobomon. I'd highly advise against it unless you have 2 Lobos in your hand already.
Yep.
Lobomons, we'll talk about Lobomon in a minute, but like if you have 2 Lobomons, you're pretty safe to put this on Gabumon. But if you only have 1 Lobomon, it's pretty risky. But
yeah, makes sense.
yeah, but we'll talk about that probably right now. So we'll talk about Lobomon now. This is a pretty old card as well. Pretty much what it does is when you Digivolve into it, it has a when Digivolving effect, is you can go into an Ancient Garurumon for 1 memory. If you do that, delete this Digimon at the end of the turn. So pretty much for 3 memory, you go straight into Ancient Garuru, which we'll go into in a second. One of the reasons why I was saying that if you have 2 of these, it's not the biggest deal if you throw one of these away on a Gabumon or something like that, is because Ancient Garurumon will actually recycle this from your stack.
Yeah, that's right.
So pretty much once you see 1 Lobomon, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Lobomon's one of the pieces, like you just need to see 1 of it, and then you can just keep the loop going just with that 1 card. It's usually your other cards that you need to see multiples of. Lobomon, you only need to see 1 of it. So that's why I was saying if you do have 2 of them, you can put it on EX1 Gabu. if you're in a pinch. And then we'll talk about the big guy of the deck. So we've got Ancient. You would you ever hard play this? I guess you could. I guess you could for 9 if you were in a pinch.
Ben did it to me once, and it actually won him the game. So like,
Yeah,
I want to say
yeah.
it's a thing that can happen, but yeah, it probably won't come up that often.
Yeah. So this guy is the big boss monster of the deck. He's pretty ridiculous, especially when you can just get him down for 3 memory. And then we have a cheater Pumpkinator card, Lament of Friendship, which we'll talk about right after this card.
Yep.
So on play, when digivolving, return one of your opponent's lowest level Digimon to the hand. Then your turn, whenever an effect adds a card to your opponent's hand, your opponent adds the top card of their security stack to their hand. On deletion, you can return a Tamer card and 1 hybrid Digimon card from your trash to your hand.
That's where you get the Lobo.
Yep. So you just get the Lobo back from your stack, pretty much. Funnily enough, I don't think there's a ton of Tamer removal in this set, but like you do have Analog Youth.
Yeah.
And the good thing I like about Analog Youth in this deck is not only can it search you any Digimon, like including Death X, which we'll talk about later.
Oh yeah.
It can also, usually when you're doing your search cards, you're like, oh, I need these Tamers. Oh, damn, I'm bottom decking them.
Yeah, but you're putting them in the bin, and then
you put them into the bin, and then Ancient Garurumon can ping him back. So Analog Youth is amazing in this deck. Like you pretty much, besides your option cards, anything either you can pick it up to your hand or put it into your bin, and you can get it back from Ancient.
It's kind of huge.
Yeah. So obviously it'll bounce. Usually, if your opponent has a board, sometimes they'll try and play around it, but like a lot of decks go pretty wide these days. So most of the time, this is bouncing a security back to hand. Then the on deletion. So once you pass turn, this deletes itself. You may return it. Oh yeah, we already spoke about that. Return the Tamer or Hybrid to your hand. Yep. Then you play a Tamer. Usually, I reckon the best Tamer to play is probably Matashita.
Yep.
You want to keep your Louis in your hand for when after this has resolved.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, like, let's say for instance, you got 2 Matashitas on board, 1 Analog Youth. You pass turn somehow at 1 memory. You delete this. You add another Matashita from your trash. You add the Lobomon that just got deleted back to your hand. You tap the Analog Youth, hatch another egg. It's 0 memory. It's still your turn. Then you put another Gabu on the stack, you play Louis, you promote, and then, you can kind of start the cycle again.
Yep, do it all again.
Yeah. Once you start doing that, you could, like, if you have another Ancient Guru, just start doing it again. It's one of the reasons I run the Bond, because sometimes you don't have the Ancient Guru, or sometimes they're kind of playing around it, and they either, they might not have a lot of stuff on board, or maybe whatever's on board has some kind of protection. So that's kind of where Bond comes into play, because if they're going to be like, oh well, you can't kill me because I have no Digimon on board, I'm like, all right, cool, I'm going to go into Bond then. That's kind of my line of thought on that.
Yeah. Fair enough. Before you get off Ancient, just tell us the interaction with Lament of Friendship, because it's insane.
Yeah, we might as well do that straight off the bat. Yeah. So we'll go to Lament of Friendship here. So while you have a Tamer with Matashita in its name, you may use this card without meeting its color requirements. So we have those 4 blue mats. Main, return 1 Digimon card from your trash to your hand. I usually try and grab an Ancient with this if I can. But, if you have to grab a Gabumon, it's not the worst thing in the world. But usually I find this is a good way to try and recycle your Ancients.
Yep.
Then one of your Digimon with Garurumon in its name gains on deletion. Play this card without playing its cost until the end of the turn.
Woo.
So you know how I was telling you guys all about the loop there? How it plays a Tamer, bring it back to your turn, slap a Gabumon on the stack. If you pass a turn with Lament of Friendship and you have enough Analog Youths to bring it back to your turn, even if you don't have enough Analog Youths to bring it back to your turn, just playing another Ancient, because his Digivolve effect is an on-play effect as well.
Yep, it's an on-play as well, because they're Digicross.
Yeah, so like he just slaps it down. If they have another thing on board, you bounce another thing back to hand, you bounce another security back to hand. And say, even if you pass a turn, it's like, all right, your turn. And then if they delete this, you can play another tamer for free. Like you grab another tamer from your bin. Like you know. So yeah, I really like Lament of Friendship.
It's
Shout out to
insane.
Ben, gave me the shout for this. It came up a ton in the locals I won. I'm definitely not going lower than 2 on it.
Yeah, it
But
can be a bit awkward because it does need the mat, but like
it does need the mat, but it's kind of what I said at the start of the video. If you don't see mat, the whole it's not just this that doesn't work.
Yeah,
it's
the
like
whole deck kind of doesn't.
The whole deck doesn't work. Like sometimes you can, like if you don't see Louis, the deck's not great, but it still works. If you don't see Analog Youth, the deck's not great, but it still kind of works. But if you don't see Matt, like the whole deck just doesn't fuck.
The game plan is gone.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, we'll just get down to the last 2 Digimon. So we got Bond. Bond is just like an OTK / like oh shit button. Sometimes he comes up early in games. Like for instance, I had a friendly game with Jason. He was playing Yellow Vaccine, and turn 1 he didn't see his Patamon, which is pretty big for Vaccine. But by the time he got to his second egg, he had a Patamon in the back. So what I did is I promoted Bond, then also promoted Gabumon, went into Bond, and then also played offensive plug-in. And just cleared all his security, and then it's like, cool, nice Patamon you got there. Like, what's it going to digivolve into? You have no security. So
you didn't kill him, but you had the 2 checks at checks at 2 security, 1 security. So you took out 4.
Just cleared his whole security out. Yeah.
Nice.
So and also like with that card, if you have this Gabumon,
it's
with this
spending twice, right?
Yeah, and then you have this plugin, which we'll talk about in a second. You have lethal. You have lethal from 4 security cards.
Yep, that's right.
Which I really like. And this is how I've always played a lot of Bond decks. I kind of pop in and out of Bond because it's one of the pet decks of mine.
Can confirm.
But one of the things I love about it is is that combo. This, and the plugin. It's like you're at 4 security cards. I'm threatening lethal immediately.
Yeah, it's kind of insane, and it really, is scary. As someone who's tested against Dave a lot, this combo comes up a lot more than you think.
Yeah. People would think it's a bit awkward to fit into a turn, but you got to think, like, sometimes your opponent will leave you at like 2 or 3.
Yeah,
you promote with Matish, you promote with 2 mats on the board, you're already at 5 memory.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's all you need to do this combo.
Yeah.
Plus,
previous sets, you played memory boost and stuff as well. But obviously, this list is. Oh, you got Hammer Spark here at least as well. So like,
I'm running 4 Hammer Sparks. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this man's comboing.
Yeah. All right, and then 2 Death X. Look, I'd love to put Death X to 1, but it just keeps winning me too many games. Like, I don't know what else to say. I was playing against Andrew's Imperial. And he's like, he saw me add the Death X off the analog. And he's like, I'll play around that then. And I'm like, yeah, but even if you keep 1 Digimon on board, that I know what that deck does. It wants to, like, poop out, like, 50 tamers. So even if they try and play around it with not playing a lot of Digimon, almost every deck, including this one, plays so many tamers because tamers just get played for free left and right in most decks. So I kind of like it at 2. But if you want to replace it with other cards, I could see the argument for it. But But yeah, like I said, when it stops winning me so many games, I'll drop it down to 1.
Yeah, it's an oldie but a goodie, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a bit of a safety blanket thing for me, but like I don't know, man. It keeps helping me out of a lot of sticky situations. So yeah I just kind of try and I'd like to run 1 to make space for other stuff, but like I said, it just comes up a little bit too often for me.
I feel like people don't play around it much anymore as well. Most people have cut it for consistency or something. So
well, the other reason I like it is you'll notice like this deck doesn't have a lot of removal. The Bond can kind of be removal. The Ancient obviously is a form of removal, but there's pretty much 2 ways people play around Ancient. In my short amount of playing this deck, it's either they go really wide, or they go, or they'll play like they'll play like 1 stack that is like has some kind of protection, whether it's Tyrant or Magna X, right?
And I just say, sorry to interrupt. I just noticed you have so many cards that are good hits in security.
Yeah.
Like all
Yeah.
the tamers, the 4 Hammerspark, the Ice Wall, the offensive plug-in, the Death X and the Gubba are at least big numbers in security. Like there's a lot of
Yeah.
threats. And versing this
Yeah.
deck in testing with you, if I swing in early and I hit a Mat or Analog Youth, I'm
Oh
like
yeah.
scared. I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, the game's over. Like you
Yeah,
hit a Matashita at the wrong time, and
it's
I have a
done.
Gabu in the back. It's yeah. Or if I have two mats and you hit an analog youth, it's like sweet, you know.
Hmm.
And I didn't have an analog yet. But yeah, DeathX, I find the way I use it a lot is, you know, sometimes you use it as a catch up mechanic, like the classic way. But sometimes if you have enough memory and they have enough stuff on board, you can use it to kind of clear up the board and then bounce their big stack with your ancient.
Right.
Obviously, they have to play into it pretty hard. You know, DeathX needs to kind of get down to like 2 memory for that play. But
Yeah.
sometimes decks do it. So you know,
Yeah, Death
and I
X is a bit strange now. Unless you're playing it for free or 2, yeah, it feels kind of bad to pass with. Like back
yeah,
back when it came out, you'd pass with it and be happy, but now it's
yeah,
like,
even doing it at 12 and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, I used to do crazy stuff when it came out. Now it's like, I must do it for free or for 2.
yeah. So the other thing I was going to say just about the package down here, we'll go into the few option cards we haven't spoken about in a second. But the other interesting thing I like about this deck, and especially with the inclusion of Louis, is like, you know, going a bit harder into the Louis at least. I think Louis was played in the last set's Bond as well, but it didn't loop as much as this one does.
Yeah.
Is you kind of Bond decks always had the issue of the turn they promote, they're super powerful, but the turn they don't promote, they suck.
Yeah.
The thing with Louis is sometimes, you know, it'll pass back to you. Maybe you have a few mats and a few analog youths. You put your rookie on the stack, and then you just play Louis and promote and go on your off turn, and you can start comboing on that turn as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, so usually you don't want to hard play Louis early in the game. You either want to do that on your off turns when you can't promote, when you're flipping your egg, or to loop your ancient Garurumon. You never want to just be like, oh, turn 1, play a Gabumon and a Louis. Louis, you kind of use it as like almost weirdly, like almost like an option card, if that makes sense. It's not something that you want to establish early. The mats and the analogs you definitely want to establish early, but not so much Louis. You hang on to them until you need them. All right, so we'll just get into the last few option cards. Ice Wall, always been a good card. The only other reason I really like Ice Wall is sometimes you really need to leave your opponent at 1. To if you've only got 1 analog youth, and I've played Ice Wall just to leave my opponent at 1. It's like even if they have nothing on board, I'm just like I just need to leave you at 1.
Yeah.
So I can use my analog youth. So it's good for that too.
Oh,
we
right,
kind of
yeah.
Yeah. So we kind of already spoke about offensive plugin. You know, gives you an extra security check. Usually I use this with Bond. Occasionally I use this with Ancient, because sometimes if you can squeeze it in with Ancient, you bounce security back to the hand, you check 2 cards, and then you normally can do a loop at least into a Gabumon and, you know, swing for game if they're at 3 security.
Pretty good. Also, security effect. Adds
yeah,
a tamer.
that's the other thing. Yeah, you flip top 3 and add a tamer, and then add this to your hand. So you know it kind of helps you search for your tamers in a weird way if it comes out of security.
Cool.
Yep. So that's why that's there. I have thought about maybe cutting one of these for the blue card, just so things my Bond cannot be blocked if I'm playing against Magnarex. But
Right.
I've always liked. It's one of those weird ones. I think this card's better into almost everything else.
Oh, you mean blue plugin, not blue color.
Yeah, blue plugin. Sorry,
Yeah,
I think it's called high speed plugin,
Yeah.
and it's blue. But it just reads something like you know, your Digimon gains jamming and can't be blocked for the turn.
Yeah.
Which is really good against Magnarex. But like, it's one of those weird things. I think this deck's one of its worst matchups would be Magnarex or Vaccine, just because it really struggles to get around blockers that are unaffected.
Yeah.
And I think that card would make that matchup, you know, maybe bump it up by like 2 or 3%. But yeah, I think this card's just better overall to the field. So, you know, I'm just kind of playing this at 2. I might have a week where I try, maybe I just swap both the offensives out for 2 blue, for 2 high speed plugin.
Yeah, wait till the ban list when Ukomon goes, then everyone will be on Magna again.
yeah, that'd be interesting. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, anyway. For Hammer Sparks, this is a very memory hungry deck. You're probably looking at a lot of my combos and going like, how the hell do you do this?
Yeah.
Like the math doesn't add up. Yeah, the Hammer Sparks help a ton. You could also like maybe you don't like the offensive plugin, you could put some memory boosts in. The problem I had with the traditional memory boost was it kept bottom decking a lot of my tamers, which you can't do in this deck.
And you can't use training really because, you know, well, I guess you could training into
Yeah,
Lobo, but
you can training into Lobo, which isn't bad, but
True.
it's more of a deck list thing. Like honestly, maybe I could
Oh.
swap the two Death X's out for two blue training.
But training also bottom decks your white tamers anyway, so it's like
Yeah, as well. Yeah.
yeah.
I would say the mat is the most important out of all of them, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I've also thought about running Howling Memory Boost, even though it just strips two cards and stuns something. Like you could do that if you wanted more memory gain, but I was pretty happy with I could, as long as I had my pieces, like I could do plays. Like
Yeah.
I never felt like, if I had like a couple of, obviously you probably want a couple of some of these tamers. And an Ancient, a Lobo, and a Gabumon. I found, and like maybe one Hammer Spark will get you out of jail. But like, yeah, I found, just having a few Hammer Sparks is good. Also, it's always been an amazing security hit as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Most decks really, like, including this deck, every deck almost rides a super fine line on doing their combos or their shenanigans, and like an extra 2 memory out of nowhere can really screw a lot of decks up, as it always has done.
Agreed.
Yep. So that's pretty much the deck. Is there anything else you wanted me to talk about? Or
no, I think you've summed up everything nicely. How the deck combos with itself. Now you've got memory generation, card generation. Just everything seems to just work really solid, and it's super impressive how strong this deck can be.
Yeah,
very combo piece reliant, but man, when you have them all, damn.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like when you see like at least one of everything, like the deck is insane. Sometimes a few cards might come a little late, and it'll still be okay. But like, yeah, it's also one of those decks. Like if you do not see Matt, you just feel like you're not doing anything. You just But yeah, once you kind of get going. The other good thing is once you get Matt, you kind of start drawing a lot of cards, so you kind of end up finding a lot of your other pieces as well. But yeah, I think this deck's really fun. So yeah, if you can give it a try, like I don't think it's, besides the Death X's, I don't think it's the most expensive deck. But as I mentioned before, you don't have to run the Death X's. That like if you don't want to, I guess. Like I like to run them, but if you're trying to do this on a budget, you could cut the Death X's and like, I don't know, maybe put Supreme Cannon or, something else, or maybe,
that's a good call.
Training boosts or like, something, but yeah, besides that, I think all of these cards aren't terribly expensive. So yeah, anyway, yeah, I think it's a real fun deck. Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, congrats for winning again. I hope to see you, do more with this list in future.
Yeah, no worries, man. Cheers.
All right. Peace.